All right, joining us today, Jeannie Walters, founder and CEO of Experience Investigators. And we're going to be talking about the work that she's doing with her firm and her speaking, the message that she shares with the world. And it's all about how the customer experience is everybody's business. And okay, this might sound a little bit rudimentary here, but I'm gonna take this role on, and that is I don't want to make any assumptions about what customer experience is. And Jeannie, would you just tell me what is customer experience?
I would love to, Dean. So, customer experience is often confused or conflated with customer service. But the way we talk about customer experience, it's really about the entire journey that a customer has with a brand, starting from before they even are aware of the brand, all the way through to when they become a customer, when they leave you, when they become a customer for life, when they tell other people. And so customer service is what happens when things kind of go wrong or we have questions as customers. And that's a really important thing. But that's a reactive process. We are reacting to the customer. Customer experience, the way we look at it, it's proactive and intentional. It's what do we design for the customer to have the best experience? Because that's really what keeps us loyal to brands. And that's what keeps us happy as customers.
So as soon as you said that, I'm envisioning at the store, the customer service counter, or when you call up and there's a extension that you can hit for customer service,
Hmm.
and that's just a little teeny tiny part of the whole experience. And
That's right.
for a lot of us, that can be a moment where the whole customer experience is destroyed
Hmm.
because of our customer service need.
Yep.
I think immediately about retail experiences, things like that are very consumer oriented. But what's the is there any companies that really don't have to be thinking about customer experience? Where are we at today?
Hmm. I would say wholeheartedly no, there is no organization. If you have customers, well, first of all, if you have customers, you have a customer experience, whether you think about it or not. Your customers are having an experience. So the best thing we can do, and the way that I really approach this, and the reason I get so passionate about this, is because if you approach this as a strategy, it becomes a win-win-win. It becomes a win for your customers because they feel better about interacting with your brand. They feel like they're valued and treated well. They feel like they're not only getting a product, but they're building a relationship. It's better for your employees because people don't want to work at a place where everybody's complaining or you're having a lot of refunds or problems. And employees who feel ownership over the experience, they feel valued. They feel like their work is very meaningful. And so they have a better experience as an employee. And then when you do this well as an organization, when you really treat it like a business strategy, then it's a winning business strategy. And this is proven again and again and again. So if you have two organizations and selling the same products, and one of them is thinking about this and proactively designing delightful experiences and thinking through the actual customer journey, they are going to do better. They are going to have better business results, better, higher revenue, lower expenses. It's easier to hire people when you have a great customer experience. It's just a win all around. So that's how we have to really think about it. But the challenge is we haven't really been taught this as business people. And if you think about a traditional business plan, it's all about acquisition. It's all about how do you get those customers in the door? How do you market? What's your brand? And then you turn the page after the sale and it goes completely internal. What are our operations and processes? What are we doing on the inside of the organization? And we kind of forget that there's a whole journey after that transactional sale that a customer has. And it's up to us to really be strategic about that and really just share trust with the customer and say, we understand why you did this. It's not really about the product or service. It's about what they're trying to do. What is their goal? And so that's what I get really enthused about is thinking through all of those things. And that's why I named the company Experience Investigators because there's always more to look at. There's always more to learn.
Has so it sounds like the principles that you understand have always been true, Is it fair that with the world we're in of Google reviews and Yelp and all of these things, that it's become even more important?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I started this business 15 years ago, and that was kind of at the dawn of social media. And that changed the game because suddenly there used to be all these barriers between the companies that we worked with as customers and being a customer. All of a sudden, social media ripped all of that away. And customers were able to say things very publicly and call out certain situations, and companies had to figure out how to react to that, and they hadn't even thought about it. And so now we're living in a world where, yes, customers have more control, absolutely. And the other thing that's happening is we as a people are changing as consumers. So every generation that you get younger and younger with the generations, they're more likely to shop with their values, to understand that they are able to walk away. There used to be a thing that if your mom used Tide, you would use Tide. Like there were empires built on that notion, right? And now people are much more likely to question, is this product or service aligned with my values as a person? And they're willing to do their homework, and they're willing to look it up, and they're willing to call people out. And if I am not treated in a way that shows respect and transparency and honest communication, I'm not only going to walk away as a customer, I'm going to tell everybody I encounter that they should not be doing business with that brand. So part of the revenue generation that we talk about is if you do this really well, if you invest in your customer experience, you not only get the customers of today who feel good about it, they are more likely to refer other customers to you. They are more likely to renew their contract in B2B. They are more likely to actually buy more, so you get more share of wallet from them. But if they have a bad experience, not only are they not going to lead to that revenue, they're going to actively take revenue away from you because it's about trust. It's a relationship. And they are going to try to prevent people from actually becoming a customer of your brand.
So, when you think about that, a couple of thoughts around emotion and action as a customer. And how do you compare when somebody has the emotion of really excited about a brand and the action they take in telling other people or referring people? How do you compare that to the emotion that people have when they are really frustrated and are angry at a brand and what they do? How do those actions and emotions compare?
Well, I love that you brought up emotions because a lot of businesses think they don't have to care about emotion and they just look at data as if it's this flat thing. We as human beings, we make decisions with emotions and then we rationalize them later. And so the more that we can understand what is the emotion we want to create in that moment, the more we can design things for that. So if we want people to be excited about the brand, we have to understand our customers. We have to understand what would get them excited. Why aren't they excited about certain things? What can we do to make sure that they know that our brand is not only doing this for them, but we're doing this and our competitors aren't, right? Like, so that they understand what that journey is like. That is where I really believe that that's where you build trust. And I talk about something with kind of the emotional piggy bank. You have to have a lot in that positive column because things will go wrong. And so when things go wrong and somebody's frustrated and they're calling customer service because their delivery is late or they, got the wrong order or whatever, they are going to give the brand more of the benefit of the doubt and more of a chance to recover if we have enough in that positive column. So that's where we have to be proactive. That's why I talk about that so much, because the more that you can design things that are positive, when things go wrong, when those emotions are high, it's just like any other relationship. I mean, if you have a friend who flakes on you every time you make plans, after a while, you're like, I'm not making plans, right? That's not going to happen. Same thing with the brands that we interact with. But the flip side of this, there's a little bit of a paradox here because sometimes when things go really wrong, if the brand can actually make that better in a way that feels like that person is cared for and valued, that actually can increase loyalty. And whenever I talk to people on planes or tell them what I'm in, people love to tell me their personal worst stories, right, of what happened. And many of them start with, I will always be a customer of X because, and it starts with something really bad. And then they did so much to overcome and to make sure that that was recovered in the best possible way. But that only happens if you have enough in that emotional bank. If you are proactively thinking about how can we deliver positive moments along the journey and not just when things go wrong.
It's a message that I share with leaders too when we think about how we're serving our customers is be ready and think of it as a real opportunity when things don't go as planned. How
Yep.
are we going to respond? Because everybody that is going to interact over the course of time knows something's going to go wrong sometime. The question that's in the back of our mind is like, what are you going to do when it goes wrong?
Right.
And once we experience that, that is an amazing moment if we're ready for it and know how to handle it. And I mean, there's so many obvious viral things like the Stanley Cup in the car that burned, and
Yeah.
their ability to act quickly and take care of her and replace it. And what do we do when things go wrong is really something that can set us apart.
Absolutely.
Let's take this to many of the people watching are maybe running their own business, maybe a solopreneur, speaker, trainer, author, things like that. A lot of the work that you do is with large, complex organizations with a lot of moving parts and a lot of people. How do we take those principles scale them to our level, and think about how do we apply the experience levers to the work that we do as a business of one?
Yeah, I love this question. And one of my favorite kind of tactics that we have in customer experience is something called customer journey mapping, which you've probably heard me talk about. And that's really when you think through the customer's experience from the customer's point of view. And the difference is when we design our own processes, we have things like, well, then we send the invoice, right? That's what it looks like on our side. What I want everybody to do is think about what is that like for that person. And I encourage people when they do this to use I statements from the customer's perspective, saying, so you never say, well, we send an invoice. You say, I received an invoice. What is that experience like? What are the words? Are we reflecting the values that we want to reflect? If we say up until that point, oh my gosh, we're going to make this so easy for you, you won't have to worry about anything, and then we send an invoice, and the first thing on the invoice is basically all the horrible things that we're going to do if they don't pay it on time, right? And we do that because that's what we think is the process. That's what people have told us. But the act of customer journey mapping can be so enlightening. And I had the privilege a couple of years ago of doing this at Influence for a session. And I have people today who still tell me, like, oh my gosh, we changed how we do things. We changed how we follow up with prospects. We changed how we actually, wrap up with an event planner at the end because they thought about their perspective and what they needed instead of thinking about our internal processes. And this is also a chapter program I do, so anybody out there. But it's really, I think it's such a powerful tool because we just aren't taught this. And it's something that anybody can do. And by thinking through that experience, you are going to be able to set yourself apart, in my humble opinion.
And it sounds like you have to be very intentional about it, right? It doesn't happen by accident.
Absolutely.
If
Right.
the things that happen by accident probably end up being things that are efficient for us as the business owner, rather than impactful for our clients. So
Right.
that's a key point. Map that out. Okay, let's kind of bring it here together and talk about. You mentioned NSA. You recently received your Certified Speaking Professional Award, CSP.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay. Illinois. Um, Tell me about in your work. So you started your business 15 years ago, and through that, you are speaking, you are training, you're coaching, you're doing a lot of work to help customers. What's the role that you've found national NSA as well as the local NSA Illinois chapter being as a part of that journey for you?
Well, it's a huge journey, and I think, or it's a huge part of the journey, and I think part of it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about around intention. Like I did a lot of things by happenstance in the beginning of my company. I just kind of people would ask me to speak locally, and I'd be like, sure, I can do that, and I'd throw something together and speak, and okay, well, I like that, but I I wasn't as intentional about the business part of it. I wasn't as intentional about how to best prepare. How can I really make sure that I'm going to deliver for my clients? All of that is really what came together for me when I went to my first influence, I think in 2016, and that was in Phoenix. And I really realized like this isn't just about thinking, oh, I know my stuff. I'm going to get up there. It'll be fine. It's really about being intentional about the type of speaker I want to be and the type of speaking business I want to have. And I learned so much from so many generous people at the national and local level with our NSA Illinois chapter. I had the privilege of serving on the board a few years and serving in various capacities there. And I just think that by one of the things I always appreciate is that there's no one perfect way to do this. There's no one perfect way to run a speaking business or even be a speaker. And the fact is, each one of us brings something really unique. And so learning from other people, looking at, you know what, that's great for them. That works for them. I don't think that's going to work for me. And being okay with that. And figuring that out can be so powerful. So I think in the last, 10 years, that's really been my journey, is figuring out I don't have to be anybody else. I can learn from all these amazing people and cheer them on and figure out things based on learning for both my business and me as a speaker. How can I be the best me at this that I can be? That's what I got out of NSA. And I continue to.
Yeah, that's awesome and great encouragement for everybody because it can be overwhelming when you see somebody that's successful. We think, oh, I need to be doing the things that they're doing. And the reality is everybody's building their own business. Some things fit, some things work. Some things are simply there for inspiration for us to experiment with. So thank you for that. And if people want to learn more about experience investigators or the work that you're doing as a speaker, where would you send them to connect?
Well, experienceinvestigators.com has a ton of resources. So if you do want to learn about journey mapping or anything, I have 400 plus articles on various topics. So you can search our Learning Center for that. And then for me personally, you can go to jeanniewalters.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. So please connect with me there. And I'm happy to support other speakers in this crazy thing we do.
Awesome. Jeannie, thank you so much for joining and sharing us your wisdom here today.
Thank you, Dean, for all you do for NSA Illinois and for everybody else.
Thanks. Take care.